This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Nigeria's 64th independence anniversary was marked by protests in parts of the country. Dubbed Fearless in October, these protests were an extension of the End Bad Governance protests in August of 2024. The protesters called for a reversal of economic policies that have led to surging increases in energy and food prices. Now, while protesters in Abuja were tear-gassed by security personnel, those in places like Lagos and Osun carried out their demonstration without much incident. For more on this, I'm joined by Hassan Soweto, National Spokesperson Youth's Right Campaign, who also happens to be one of the protesters in both Fearless in October and End Bad Governance in August. Good morning and welcome to the conversation, Mr. Soweto.
Yeah, good morning and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Let's start with just your general assessment. How do you feel following the end of the October 1 protests?
Well, the first thing to say would be to commend the Nigerian people and the youth who came out yesterday for the protest because given what happened following the August protest, the widespread arrest and repression, it takes a whole lot of courage for people to again come out on another round of protest. And I think that with the protest we had yesterday, how successful it was, it's an indication of the resolve of the Nigerian people to continue to fight, until all of the demands are met. So I feel very much confident following the protest. And yesterday's protest was a declaration of a permanent war of resistance against the Tinubu regime and its anti-poor policy. So what that means is that following yesterday, we are going to be having, series of protests and actions, some that will be announced, some that may not be announced. But right now, from yesterday, we're on a permanent war of resistance against the anti-poor policies of this regime.
So let me take you back a moment and ask you, what are the measures of success? Because you've called it a successful protest. What makes it successful?
The first measure of success is the fact that people came out. Despite the repression, despite the climate of fear and intimidation, because what the government has done since August is to criminalize protest, is to say that to protest means that you are committing treason. And when you commit treason, that means you are liable, to the death penalty. When you have, people's right to freedom of expression and assembly put in such a stark manner, and yet people still come out regardless of it, I think you have to say that that itself is a clear indication, that what we had yesterday was a success, that we have been able to awaken the Nigerian people to the reality that we have to lose our fear and we have to keep fighting.
Ms. Soweto, my apologies. I mean, I know that there were protesters who were arrested in August, right? Detained and charged to court even. But yesterday's protests, at least in a place like Lagos, for instance, one would say that the government did allow people to exercise their constitutional right. So by yesterday occurring, would you still insist that this is an administration that's criminalizing protests?
Oh, that means you're not aware, for instance, that the Lagos State Attorney General actually has described what we did yesterday as something that is unlawful and that is a violation of a so-called court order, which they said they got in August, restricting protesters to certain designated parks. What we have had in Lagos is consistent low-scale attempt to erode democratic rights, to completely make it impossible for people to organize. What we did in August and what we did yesterday, were defiant, some of the legal bottlenecks that the Lagos State government, through the Attorney General, has created to prevent us from marching. And what this therefore means is that when they are strong enough, when they see an opportunity, some of us who protested in August in Lagos and also yesterday could actually be dragged before a court, and jailed for violating the court order. So what that means, therefore, is that we have to dig deep beyond the surface. What you see on the surface in Lagos gives you the impression that the government is supportive for people's right to protest, when the real sense of the word, that is not what is happening. What is happening is that we are defying every of the steps, the measures they are taking to prevent us from organizing. They are taking both legal as well as political steps. At Ojota yesterday, when we got to the Ganefa Park, we saw thugs who were stationed within the Ganefa Park, apparently on standby to be utilized against protesters. And that was what they did also way back in August. So I would like to encourage our media houses and journalists to actually dig deeper beyond this stuff. What we are facing in Lagos is a low-scale attempt, to muzzle our rights and our freedom to organize. And what we are doing is to defy that. But then at some point, you cannot say what would happen with regards to what they will then do to some of us who are organizing. But we are ready for them because, as we have been saying, when tyranny becomes law, resistance has to become it.
Let me ask you this. In August, we saw the protests happen in multiple states across the country. This time around, there weren't as many protesters, or at least there weren't as many locations where the protests occurred. And the major demand is that this government reverses some of the major policies it undertook over a year ago. That's not likely to happen. If that doesn't happen, would that be a discouragement? The fact that you didn't have as many states also come out to mark October 1, is that a discouragement? What is the next step for you?
It is not a discouragement. Rather, it's a challenge for us to organize better. It's a challenge for us to reach out more. Don't forget that when we ended the August protest, we said that those of us in Lagos are embarking on a mission to unite the movement nationally. And from August, we started our process. But by the time we had the October 1st protest, obviously that process had not yet been completed. We have not been able to reach out to every group across the country. What we did yesterday was simply to ensure that the October 1st Independence Day does not go without a show of resistance by the Nigerian people. As soon as we are done with the October 1st protest, we are going back to the field to continue the work of uniting the movement and of reaching out. So I can assure you that away from what we saw yesterday, by the time we have another round of protests, we are likely going to see bigger mobilizations, protests that cut across the entirety of the country. That is what we are working towards. We want to unite the movement, into one single force that can show this government that the people and our interests cannot be disregarded. So we are going to continue to do our work, and then from now on, we are going to be having protests at every point in time, almost every month. We are going to be coming out.
Right.
So far, this government refuses to meet our demand. It will continue to be visited with the anger of the Nigerian people at every point in time. That is where we are right now.
Ms. Soweto, thank you so much for joining me on the conversation today. I do appreciate your time. Mr. Hassan Soweto is national spokesperson of Youth's Right Campaign. He is one of the persons who protested back in August in the End Bad Governance protests and was also at the lead of affairs in the Fearless in October protests, which occurred on the 1st of October.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.